Hey y'all, it's Celt, and while I don't often have to debunk a fellow leftist, disinformation is disinformation. So let's talk about the congressional resolution titled Denouncing the Horrors of Socialism. Roll clip.
We got so many people to embrace socialism and Marxism on TikTok that the government made it illegal. We are winning. What's so scary about this denouncing the horrors of socialism bill that Congress recently agreed upon is that now our stuff can get taken down just for us associating with socialism, just because of our political ideology. We've now had 7 of our TikTok accounts banned, and a lot of our videos just get taken down for hateful ideology, even if they're just benign. I believe that workers should own and control the means of economic production. That's really it. It's an economic and political ideology, and in the land of the free, the country that's supposed to protect your freedom of speech and political expression, you're no longer allowed to have that ideology or express it without being banned, censored, and suppressed. And this is happening under a Democratic administration. Democrats are voting for this. It's both the bourgeois parties. The capitalists see that radicalism is stirring, so they're increasing their grip on power. The dictatorship of capital is increasing its degree of suppression.
So before I fully get into it, let me say, if you've watched any bit of my content, you've probably figured out that I'm not necessarily a liberal. I'm definitely not a conservative. Most people would call me a leftist. In fact, one of my taglines is further left than liberal. You can just go ahead and ignore that PSYOP AI deepfake part. If you're curious what further left than liberal means, it's pretty much a fancy way of saying socialism. And I say further left than liberal instead of socialism or socialist when describing myself because I don't necessarily adhere to 100% of the theory surrounding socialism. But yeah, basically I would be a socialist. But with that being said, getting back to the videos and the talking points that we're going to discuss today, none of what he said is true. Well, let me correct that. He did say one thing is true. That resolution exists. There is a resolution entitled Denouncing the Horrors of Socialism. But the rest of it is just pure disinformation. And to discuss why it's that way, we need a little bit of a civics lesson. So when we discuss Congress, most people know the very basics of it, that they write and vote on bills. Those bills go to the president's desk and get signed into law. But there are other things that Congress can do, vote on, and pass outside of bills. So 3 of the things that they can do is they can write, vote on, and pass joint resolutions, concurrent resolutions, and resolutions. And each of them have a different purpose and outcome. A joint resolution must be passed by both groups of Congress and go to the president's desk to be signed. Once it's signed by the president, it has the power of law. Joint resolutions are effectively bills, but they're used in a time in which a bill would not be appropriate, such as emergency appropriation, or amending the Constitution. Next, we have resolutions, or some people call them simple resolutions. They're only written and passed by one chamber of Congress, because they only affect that chamber of Congress. Simple resolutions do not go to the president's desk to be signed, and they do not have the power of law once they're passed by that chamber of Congress. They're used when that chamber of Congress wants to make a statement, such as denouncing or supporting something, giving advice to the executive branch, or they want to amend a rule that only affects that chamber. If the House passes a simple resolution, it has no bearing on the Senate and vice versa. And lastly, we have concurrent resolutions. These are resolutions that are passed by both chambers of Congress, both the House and the Senate, but they still do not go to the president's desk to be signed, and they don't have the power of law. This is used when something needs to affect both the House and Senate, and it has to be passed by both the House and Senate. If you were to try to change a rule that affects both chambers of Congress, such as when Congress recesses, you would use a concurrent resolution. You would also use it when both chambers of Congress are attempting to make the same statement, such as denouncing something. And that's what this is. It is a concurrent resolution that has passed the House and has moved on to the Senate to be voted on. Meaning, 1, it's not a finalized resolution because it hasn't been passed by both chambers of Congress. And even if it does, it will not have the power of law. You can tell that this is a concurrent resolution based off its name. H.Con.Res.9. House Concurrent Resolution 9. The name of it tells us that it's the 9th concurrent resolution that originated in the House. So this 3-page document was written in the House, voted in the House, and passed in the House. It passed with a vote of 328 to 86, with 14 members of the House voting present. So I should say there is actually one other thing that he was correct on when he said that Democrats did vote yes on this. Yes, there are some Democrats that voted yes on this, but that makes sense. Historically, Democrats are not socialists. They're not even really leftists. At best, they're centrists. But this document is only 3 pages long, and it's fully readable online at the website that both him and I have been using for a source for this. I mean, you can even download a PDF of it if you want to read it later or print it out. But the entire 3-page document is nothing more than a demonstration of Congress not understanding the difference between authoritarianism, communism, and socialism, because all it does is list the atrocities of authoritarian governments and blame them on socialism. And then at the end, it affirms that Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and denounces the implementation of it within the United States. But again, none of this has the enforcement of law. It's the equivalent of Congress standing up together and saying in unison verbally that they denounce socialism. It has no action behind it other than them telling us what they believe. It would have the same effect as one of us coming online and saying we denounce Nazism, white supremacy, or Christian nationalism, but not actually doing anything to impede the implementation of that and the execution of that within the United States. Both of those scenarios would be nothing more than a virtue signal. Which is interesting that Congress would take this time to do a virtue signal denouncing of socialism, but they haven't even done the basic steps to start to denounce neo-Nazism, white supremacy, or Christian nationalism. But we all know that if they actually came out and denounced that publicly and said it had no place within the United States or within our Congress, many of them would be without jobs.